Hey there, and welcome to Explosive Enterprises. Not too long ago, we did a review of the VFC Carl Gustaf M3 MAAWS. While the Goose is certainly a cool-looking piece, as we noted in the full review, it does have some pretty serious issues. Chief among them, at least in my opinion, as the resident explosives user, is that it can't fire tag projectiles. I mean, come on, it feels a little ridiculous hauling this thing out onto the field with several replica 84mm shells, only for them to either launch a football about 20 feet or fire a spray of BBs about the same distance. It absolutely begs to be firing actual pyro projectiles. Well, as we did mention in that video, we have some ideas on how to fix that problem, and let it never be said that we don't keep our word. It turns out that fixing the issue is really just a matter of extending this firing pin a bit, which is something you can easily accomplish with a 3D printed replacement. We've uploaded a CAD version of this to our Thingiverse page, but if you don't have a 3D printer, we've also uploaded it to our Shapeways store, and you can have one 3D printed for yourself out of fancy sintered nylon like this one here. Installing it is extremely easy. You remove the base plate from the shell as you normally would if you were loading it, and then using a pin punch or other appropriately sized tool, you remove this cross pin here, which holds the firing pin in place. Fish out the old firing pin, insert the new one, and line up the holes. And then reinsert that cross pin. Easy as that. Before we get into some test footage, we do want to go over one really important thing with this mod. Since the firing pin is now longer, if you try to load non-TAGINN grenades with this base plate attached, there's a decent chance you'll actually set the shells off while you're loading them. TAG grenades seem to require about an extra 1mm of firing pin length over your average 40mm grenade, so this pin really only works with those. Unfortunately, that does lock you out of basically every other grenade on the market, since the stock firing pin is too short to trigger normal shells, and this updated version is a bit too long. We're thinking that our next project is going to be a middle ground firing pin, or maybe even an entire 84mm shell with tag rifling built into it. So anyway, let's see if this thing works. Oh yeah, that will do. Now it is worth noting that tag rounds are meant to simulate a 40mm grenade, not an 84mm recoilless rifle round, so they do have a pretty serious amount of projectile drop compared to what a Carl Gustaf would normally have, meaning that the iron sights aren't going to be terribly useful at most ranges. The scope mount, on the other hand, gives you quite a bit of angle adjustment, so we're thinking that it's possible to get this thing legitimately ranged in at the various increments. Anyways, as we mentioned, if you have access to a 3D printer, check out the Thingiverse link in the description for the STL files for this mod, as well as a step file if you want to play around with the dimensions. If you don't have access to a 3D printer, you can have one made up on Shapeways, also linked in the description below. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment and we'll try to answer as best we can. And if you're interested in supporting us further, consider grabbing a t-shirt or an Explosive Enterprises patch from our merch store, and you can find a link to that in the description. Thanks for watching.